In this video, we're going to talk about predatory conferences, what they are, and how you can avoid them. So this will be a supplement to our video and our blog post on predatory journals, which you could find on our website. So to begin with, what is a predatory conference? So predatory conferences are conferences that appear to be legitimate academic conferences, but they in fact exist to collect fees for the people who are running them and are in charge of them. And they often do so without offering a meaningful review of the content that is submitted to the conference. So abstracts, they often don't review them as rigorously as other institutions do. The visibility of the conference may be very limited compared to if you were presenting at a major conference, and the overall academic value could be much lower at these conferences than at a more mainstream conference. So the reason why you don't want to present at one of these is first of all, the fees are often very exorbitant. Second of all, the quality of people presenting at them may not be as high as you would get at a typical conference for, let's say, the American Psychological Association or a more mainstream kind of conference. So there is some chances for people to gain some value from these types of conferences. They often have keynote speakers from reasonable universities. They often have people who are presenting their research that can be kind of interesting, but the overall value is much lower because there's not that same rigorous kind of review that you would get if you were trying to present at a more mainstream conference. So in this video, we'll go over some things you should look for to avoid presenting your work at one of these conferences. So first and foremost, unsolicited, overflattering invitations to present at the conference. So this is similar to predatory journals where they'll send you an email unsolicited, perhaps from a field or a discipline that isn't really that much related to your own field or discipline. And what they're doing is they're hoping that people will see these emails and they know that they need opportunities to present and to network with other researchers. They're hoping that people will not look into the conference and see that it is in fact predatory, and they will present their work there without thinking or without considering it. So if you are getting unsolicited, overly flattering emails, this could be something to look out for, because typically major conferences like the American Anthropological Association, these kinds of the Association for Asian Studies, these conferences do not send out these overly flattering email invitations. Next, the conference topics are extremely broad or unrelated. So this is a very clear sign that the conference that you're considering is a predatory conference. Many conferences will be very disciplinary in scope, so psychology, sociology, applied linguistics. Some of them can be much more specific, so say experimental clinical psychology or something like that. But when it comes to these predatory conferences, they'll often have a really broad theme in which any kind of discipline within the humanities or social sciences could potentially present at. And this isn't usual for normal academic conferences. They're usually much narrower in their scope and focus. So if you're seeing that the topics are really broad or unrelated to each other, this could be a good indication that this too is a predatory conference. Next, low quality or incomplete website with missing information. So sometimes you may come across a website and the website may not be that well made. It may look kind of sloppy. There may be very unprofessional things about the website that catch your attention, maybe some spammy pop-ups, just poor writing, poor copy overall. This is something that's unusual for major organizations and academic organizations such as the American Psychological Association or something like that. If you go to a website of one of these major organizations, the websites will be very well made, they'll function well, they'll look nice. So if you're looking at a website that looks like it's poorly made, not very well put together, you may in fact be dealing with one of these predatory conferences. Next, faster guaranteed acceptance with no peer review. So if the website or the email that you get about this conference is saying that they'll accept your abstract pretty easily or you're almost guaranteed acceptance, this too could be a red flag that this is a predatory conference. The reason for this is that most academic organizations will carefully look at the abstracts that are submitted to make sure that their scope is within the goals of the organization, and they'll make sure that the research that's going to be presented is of good quality. If this particular conference is offering fast or guaranteed acceptance, this could be a red flag that this is in fact a predatory conference that you're dealing with. Next, high registration fees with unclear refund policy. So this is probably the biggest indication you're dealing with a predatory conference. So academic conferences are usually not $500, $700, even $1,000 to attend. The fees here are, for a lot of the social sciences and humanities disciplines, they're more like 200, 300 for the major conferences, and there's like a very reasonable student or young scholar type of discount. If you see the registration fee is incredibly high, much higher than what you're used to in terms of these conferences, then you might be dealing with a predatory conference in this case. Now, you may want to check this and do some more research, because there are some legitimate conferences that do have a very high attendance fee, and the purpose of that is that they want people to attend who are serious about attending, and they want people who are going to participate and be very interested in it. But you do want to check and see, because sometimes the difference may not be as clear as you might expect. And then finally, fake or unverifiable speakers and organizers. The people who are presenting at the conference, if you can't find their names on a proper university website, or if they are in fact faculty members, but they're kind of dubious, or they're at a university somewhere that really nobody's ever heard of before, and they're serving as the keynote for this, this should also be a red flag, because in most cases for legitimate conferences, people will invite big names in the field to go and do these keynote presentations. So you could look here, you could look at keynote speakers, you could look at the organizers, you should be able to find them very easily on a university website, and this should be a legitimate university as well. So if you can't find the speakers or the organizers, or if you look at previous conferences that have been held and you looked at their conference sort of manual and see that people from there are not easily found online, this could be another red flag that you're dealing with a predatory conference. So overall, you want to avoid predatory conferences for a few different reasons. First of all, it'll protect your time. You're not going to spend your precious time going to a conference that's not going to have a lot of academic pull behind it and not have a good reputation. You don't want to waste your money on these conferences. As I mentioned, these could be very high in terms of their registration fees, and when you factor in housing and lodging and transport, this could easily become very expensive, especially way out of the reach of many younger researchers and younger scholars. And then finally, this could do damage to your academic reputation. If you present at these conferences, there's a likelihood that people will begin to look at you as not being a serious academic, because you're going to these conferences, as the standards of these to be accepted to present are rather low. They're not really vetting the abstracts and the presenters, and they're not really taking it serious the same way that a major organization such as the American Anthropological Association might do. So you want to be very careful about this, because it can harm your reputation. As always, if you have any questions about a conference or want to reach out to us about a free consultation, please feel free to do so. We'll be happy to give you our suggestions on this at any time. Thank you for watching our video.